So it is March, finally, and that means spring is close by, and also severe weather season could be upon us any day now. And what I wanted to do is look at some historical data and try to gather some statistics on the severe weather risk in my area. And that could include how many days per year on average we have a risk of severe weather, and which months have the highest risk, and anything else that might come up along the way. A while back, I showed a rather poorly written script that I made, although still functional, that can analyze color coded maps such as the ones provided by the Storm Prediction Center. And in this case, instead of using it daily on the most recent maps, I wanted to use it against the product archive, which is also available on the Storm Prediction Center website. This has convective outlook data going all the way back to 2003, although this time I'm only using it back to 2015, mainly because they changed some colors around then, and also I believe that's around when they introduced the enhanced risk as well. But I would like to revisit this at some point with all of the available data, but for now, hopefully we can still get some sort of interesting statistics and patterns in our severe weather risk using the data that I've gathered. So this is mostly the original script. The only major change is that I changed it to a function so that I can call it multiple times for each date that I have maps for. And some of the file names have changed as well. Then this is the main part, which loops through all of the dates that I downloaded the images for and analyzes them with the SPC function and then inserts it into a Postgres database. Now, in Postgres, I'll be able to filter, sort, and group the data however I want, and I was also going to make some graphs, but I don't think that'll really help a whole lot. We should be able to tell a lot just by looking at the tables. And then here's the images that it's going to use. Each date has a map for general risk, and then tornado, wind, and hail. Alright, so I'm gonna run it. Here goes nothing. Okay, so first of all, let's make sure that we've actually got something. So I'm just gonna do select star from Quad Cities, which is our table name. So this looks pretty good. Most of this data is pretty much useless, of course, because most days we don't have a severe weather risk. So most of these are going to be none for the risk. But it looks like in 2015, it wasn't until April that we had our first marginal risk. And then, the next couple of days we had a slight and then an enhanced risk. Let's go to 2016. It was March that we had our first severe weather. You know what I'm going to do is, for our first filter, I'm going to get rid of any of those where the risk is none. So where risk is not equal to none. And okay, so that's a little bit more useful. So yeah, 2015 April was the first severe weather risk day. And then 2016 it was March. In 2017 it was February, so two of those were a marginal risk, but then on the 28th was an enhanced risk, so that's pretty unusual for February. I'll have to look at that in a little more detail, because I don't think I remember that. But anyway, and I'm kind of curious what the last days. So 2015, yeah, December 23rd, that's when we had the tornado, an actual spotted tornado on that day. But in 2016, had a marginal risk in November 7th or 2nd. 2017, December 4th, marginal risk again. 2018, yeah, so it's not too uncommon to have at least a marginal risk pretty late in the year, I guess. But anyway, let's see if there were any high risk days. So let's select where risk equals high, and there are none. What about moderate? So there were 4 moderate days, 2 of them last year, and that last one, the August 10th, that was the derecho, which went through Iowa and also through northern Illinois later, and that that definitely messed some places up. There was well over 100-mile-an-hour winds in some areas. Cedar Rapids, Iowa, got hit the hardest, I think. But I might use these ones a little bit later, and we'll look at the storm reports and match up how the prediction actually goes along with what actually happened on that day. But for now, let's try some groupings. So I'm gonna select the year and then count the number of severe weather days in that year, where risk does not equal none, and then group by year. Also, I'm going to order. Okay, so it looks like most, at least in the past 6 years, most of the time we have somewhere in the 50s as far as the number of severe weather days. So that's almost once a week. That seems pretty high, but I guess that is including marginal risks, though. So I guess it's not terribly high. Last year, though, 2020 was definitely an anomaly. Only 40 severe weather risk days. But let's add another filter and get rid of marginal risks. So that brings us down to 27 severe weather risk days in 2015 and 2019, and then 2018 is actually the lowest as far as if we exclude marginal risk. So what else can I do? Let's group it by month this time. Okay, so it looks like June is when we have the most severe weather days at 70. Well, this is actually total. It might be more useful if we look at the average, so that would be dividing all of these by 6. And I don't know if we can do that, in at least without changing some things here. So count divided by 6, yeah. So what can I do here? Okay, and then there we go. So in June, there's an average of 11.6 days where there's a severe weather risk. Then in July, there's 11 even, an average number of days with a severe risk. And then in May, there's 8.8, August 6.5, September 4.8, April 3.3, October is 2, March is 1, and then November, February, and December are less than 1. And January is the only month where there has never been a severe weather risk in the past 6 years, so that's also kind of interesting. Let's change this to look at tornadoes. So instead of where the risk is not equal to none, let's do tornado is greater than 0. Wait. Or not tornado. Tornado. Okay, so that brings us at May having the highest number, which that makes sense. I think that May is when we have the most actual tornado sightings, and then June is not far behind. So May, there's an average of 4.3 days where there's a risk of tornadoes, and then June is 3.8 days, July is 2.8, and then August 2.5, September 1.6, April 1.5, and October 1.5, and then March, November December, February is 1 or less days with a tornado risk. So let's see if they're... I guess we can group by risk as well. What am I doing wrong here? Oh, jeez. Okay, so most of the severe weather risk days are marginal, and then slight, and then enhanced, and then finally the least number of days are moderate. So that's not too unexpected. Let's look back at some of these moderate risk days since there weren't any high risk in the past 6 years in my area. So this was the 28th of February 2017. Pretty unusual time to be having a moderate risk of severe weather, but there was one for southern Illinois and parts of Missouri and Indiana. And then on the reports, we can see that most of the tornado reports and the significant wind and hail was a little bit north and west of where it was predicted here. And unfortunately, there were some fatalities with these tornadoes, so it's definitely not good. I don't think my immediate area was affected by this, though, but which is probably why I don't remember it. But yeah, definitely not a good day for some areas. And then this was the 13th of July, 2015, and we're just barely in that northwestern part of the moderate risk here, which goes across central Illinois and then southern Indiana and western Kentucky. And the storm reports mostly are quite a bit east of that, where that moderate risk is. And then this one was the 22nd of June, 2016. Quad Cities area is not in the moderate risk, actually. The script just kind of accidentally caught that, I guess. But it was pretty close to the area. Going across northern Illinois, northern Indiana, and western Ohio. And the storm reports show quite a few tornado reports focused around northern Illinois there. Fortunately, no fatalities or injuries or anything, but there were quite a few reports. And then, so this one is the 28th of March, 2020. Small moderate risk in northern and western Illinois here. And the reports show not really a whole lot happened in that area. A few tornado reports, 2 injuries there. And then finally, the 10th of August 2020, this was the derecho. So this was mostly a very high wind event. Well, there were quite a few tornadoes reports actually. I didn't even know that at the time, but the main thing that this caused was very, very strong winds, though. Like if we look for Cedar Rapids, 130 mile an hour winds. So that was just a really bad day. Power outages everywhere. I remember in my area here, we didn't have power for 3 or 4 days, and that was us being some of the lucky ones in this, because in some areas it was weeks before they got all the power restored. But yeah, just very high winds. Another one that's over 100 in Benton, Iowa. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to look into. Like I said, I want to eventually get all of the data so I can get some better averages, but right now I'm too lazy to do that, so that is all for now.